Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is John Bunn and I am so excited to be back again for another episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast. This week is a doozy, if I might say. KT Mary from KT Mary Photography, KT Mary Education is here with us today, and I'm going to be honest, it was an incredible episode. She's a luxury photographer doing some of the biggest and best weddings around the world, published on all the magazines, on all the lists. She is killing it. We have a great conversation about how she got into the luxury market, and we also kind of break down some of the mistakes that people are making trying as wedding filmmakers to get into the luxury market. We talk about mindset and impact. It was awesome. I mean, it really was. I'm inspired after the episode. I'm sitting here just thinking how awesome of a person KT is. I love that she has all kinds of educational resources for people. And I really love that her heart is to impact people. And that's what we talk about today. So yeah, I'm very excited. It's an awesome week. Lots of good things to talk about. Before we get into the episode, I wanted to mention one of our sponsors, VidFlow. If you don't know what a VidFlow is, if you don't know who they are a company that helps you deliver your wedding films digitally. Instead of sending just a Dropbox link or even just a YouTube video, you upload your films to an awesome video player. Your couple can then download the films. It's a beautiful gallery with phone apps, TV apps, so people can just get a link. It looks beautiful, so they can watch their films. You can separate it into the feature films or teasers. They can download those in full quality. And then also it just really helps to serve the couple. I embed mine into a custom web page, and it's just a great resource. So if you head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/vidflow, you can check out all the promo codes that we have going on for discounts and see kind of a behind the scenes look with some videos on what it actually looks like to use video. I promise you it will upload. Don't cut this out, Blake. I promise you that it will upgrade the way that your wedding films look. And I think that's it. Also, Nick is on vacation. You don't see Nick. It's just me. I don't like it as much when Nick's not here, but, we'll get through it. We'll get through this together. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get into the episode with KT Mary. All right. Well, welcome the one and only KT Mary to the How to Film Weddings podcast. Why don't you say hello, introduce yourself, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I feel so honored. It's such a pleasure. I've been so impressed with this podcast and also this whole community. So I'm really grateful to be here. As you mentioned, KT Mary, and I'm a luxury destination wedding and editorial photographer and have been shooting around the world for about the last 15 years in weddings, but about 20 in the photography industry.
Yeah. And whenever you say luxury photographer, this is no joke. And we're going to get into that. You're doing some of the best and most beautiful, you're just doing some incredibly beautiful weddings all around the globe. And we'll get into that. I don't think it always started that way. So I'd love to kind of hear a little bit of your journey, as much as you'd like, into how you got into picking up your first camera and how it's led you to where you're at today.
Sure. So yeah, it definitely did not start anywhere close to here. In fact, I really grew up a bit of a military brat, lived in Japan growing up, lived in Mammoth Mountain, but ended up going to high school in northern Nevada, just down the hill from Lake Tahoe, in a small town called Gardnerville. If anyone knows where that is, I will be very impressed. And I was lucky enough to be going to school back in the days when we still had a dark room in our small town high school. And I had a photography class and a teacher who took me under her wing, and I kind of got obsessed with taking photos, and we were processing the film and the whole nine yards. And she really helped me along and ended up enrolling me in what was at the time called VICA, which was Vocational Industrial Clubs of America, everything from car mechanics to welding and photography. And I did a state competition in Las Vegas, even though I wasn't technically even in the club. And I won at that level, and then ended up going on to a national competition in Kansas City and was runner-up there, which in turn left me with 2 full rides to 2 different photography schools. I have always been a really passionate animal lover, conservationist, and really didn't quite know what my college plan was. It was like maybe study zoology and minor in photography or something like that. But one of my chief goals was to get out of the state of Nevada to go explore more things. And so all of a sudden I had a ticket to do that. And so photography kind of chose me, and left behind my days of working at cattle ranches. I was a wrangler on a cattle ranch for about 7 years during high school, and went to school in Western Massachusetts and went into a full trade program of photography and learned all the ropes there.
Wow. Yeah. I have family that has a cabin near Donner Lake. And so
cool.
we go up there, and I've been there a handful of times and mountain biked around there and all that kind of stuff. It's beautiful up that way.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you were pretty good at an early age. You probably practiced a ton. And yes, having a red room probably helped with the film and learning all that. And obviously to get scholarships at schools, you were good. You were good at what you did, of course. And so as a person that now, has school, you're doing school, you're learning more about you're figuring these things out. You said you're like a conservative, like you want to help, preserve life and animals and all these different things. You want to travel the world. Where did weddings, how did that get going? When was that you decided, hey, maybe my weddings could be something I do?
Yeah, and it was a long ways down the road. So when I got started, this was when weddings were still in church basements, white tablecloths, not cool, or appealing to a young budding photographer looking to take over the world. So I quickly started working in fashion photography and set my sights on doing that, and became a fashion photographer's assistant, and was freelance and just started knocking on doors, and then ended up becoming a first assistant. One of the themes that you'll notice between cattle ranch to photography school to now lugging equipment around, and this was at the time it still is, male dominated industry, because your job is pretty much just to lug equipment around all day. And I'm like, no, at the time, like a pipsqueak 19-year-old girl, like, hire me. But I'm a very hard worker. And so when I did get my foot in the door, people would have me come back and come back and come back. And I became a first assistant to a couple different photographers, one primarily a German photographer here in Miami. And I just started working and traveling the world through that job and getting a lot of experience in that area of photography. And during that time, and this is going to date me, but we'll do it. That's when digital started to be born. He was a very progressive photographer, so we were using like the first Kodak camera that you could shoot like 5 frames to a card, and I'd run to a Pelican case and download it quickly and do it again. It was pretty progressive. And so then eventually I became a digital tech, better pay. I was running all the tech of those things, and I learned a lot about color exposure, because that's pretty much your job, is like going, close a half stop down, close, 1/3 up. So I did a lot of those old school things that a lot of people don't get the privilege to do now, like judging clips in a film lab in Miami Beach, and working for fashion photographers on big sets, and then later just running the tech and really kind of being the eyes for the photographer on the back end. And so did that for 5 years. And so that was a long time. And right around that time, really, it was time for me to get back behind the camera. So doing all this, I was not taking a lot of pictures. You really end up working the sets and that kind of thing. And then it was time for me to get shooting again. And at the same time, all of a sudden the industry shifted again, and blogs were being born, and Style Me Pretty came about, and the whole wedding photojournalism thing kind of started. And it was like this whole new wave of like, wow, wedding photography can be cool. Who knew? And I kind of tuned in and started doing second shooting and associate shooting and that kind of stuff on the side, and really quickly realized like, I think this is actually kind of cool. I get to really be the art director, be the creative director, be the photographer, all those things, which on a fashion job, you are limited. There's a lot more cooks in the kitchen from that aspect.
I love it. I love hearing that. And some people listening are like, wait a sec. What does that even, any of that stuff mean? Because it's like they started, in 2021 or something. And it's just being
archaic over here.
Yeah, I'll mention certain things about with video. You know, it's like we used mini DV tapes, and you had to take the tapes and you had to put them into the computer and digitize them, and you had to, or whatever. And people are like, "What? What does that even mean?" You can see their eyes.
What's a camcorder?
Yeah, and that was to me, I think 2007. I think was my first
Yeah.
one. And so anyway, I wasn't in a film lab, but at the same time, like I think it's pretty cool though that you said it's like I'm a hard worker, and you were putting in these reps and you were doing
Yeah.
this repetition over time and learning. I mean, if you've got to say, hey, half stop up, half stop down, whatever, you're paying attention to those fine details. You can see now in your work that it's like you're a pro when it comes to understanding light and understanding how to provide imagery that's not just throwing your camera on aperture mode and just spraying and praying.
Yes.
And that has obviously gotten you massive exposure. I want to get into it, but like, your relationships you've built over the years, the editorial side of stuff that you do, all these things have added up to becoming one of the top photographers on the planet when it comes to wedding photography, editorial work. And if people don't follow you along with your journey, you're all over the globe all the time doing things. And people are like, well, that's where I want to go. Like, I want to do that. I want to go film weddings over here. I want to go photograph. I'd love to hear a little of the journey of like, okay, we've picked up a camera. We've started to do some of these weddings. I don't think you were charging what you're charging now or shooting the kinds of weddings. What did a little bit of that story, like you got going, you start to realize, is this something that I'm really passionate about, or did it take a while, or what was a little bit of the story of, I'm doing weddings now. I can see that there's a path to doing luxury. What did that story look like?
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that was maybe a shortcoming that I realized later on, was I wasn't really dreaming big enough or having that vision towards this path. Like where we are now definitely wasn't on my radar. I was definitely thinking smaller. So I think it took me a lot longer than it needs to and does take people these days. Today, you can just accelerate so much quicker. And there's so much more information about this, about we're really like saying, hey guys, this is what's possible. Like whatever you're dreaming, I challenge you to dream 2 times later. So that's a lot of this, inside our community, we have a lot of those conversations just because I think there's so much more that's possible. But at the time I was really just, okay, great. I want to create beautiful work. That means I need some beautiful weddings in front of me. I knew from the get-go, I did not want to recycle the same South Florida ballrooms. And I knew I really wanted to, once again, travel the world, recurring theme, how in my dream world, I was, a kid with a big bank account and a Gap year and a backpack. That wasn't my scenario. So I had to find other ways to travel the world and go see all these amazing things. And the gift of that was it really created that motivation to, how do I all of a sudden get booked on a job in Bali or Ireland or wherever when I'm, have shot 10 events in Miami or things like that. And once again, utilizing the resources that I did have, which were, I'd been working in some of the top photo locations through being a photographer's assistant, working on these fashion jobs. So things like the locations, like I once again built good relationships because I was just also just going out and being myself and a nice person. And so when it came time for me to need to go shoot something there, they said, absolutely, we won't charge you a location fee. Come in and shoot something. And I shot like a Bali inspired editorial shoot where the makeup artist that I worked with did the makeup, and the location people said, come shoot for free. And, all of these types of things really came together. And that was really the start of being able to show people what kind of the direction I wanted to take my work and what was possible, and kind of a different take on the wedding photography. At the time, it was still really in that photojournalism moment, and I was kind of bringing in this like fashion editorial vibe a little bit, and that was kind of the start of that. And then I think that slowly helped inspire jobs, and I try to carve out at every single wedding, even if it was just like 10 photos that had that vibe, even if the rest of the wedding was really, not luxury, not that vibe, I would just try to carve out those few shots, and those started to grow over time, which really helped to establish that aesthetic and attract the right kind of couples.
Yeah. So you start with, building of relationships, of course, and then starting to get out there and do these styled shoots or do different things to get your name out there, the work out there. You start doing these things, you have this vision of where you want to get going. Were there any moments that like you're in your journey that you're like, because I did this little door opened, and this, because for me, when I talk to people, there's a lot of little bitty things. There's sometimes there's big moments when I'm talking to people, but you start doing these things. Is there something that stood out to you of like, okay, we did this, and then boom, the next night I was in the luxury market? Or were there tons of little things along the way, or anything stand out to you in that part of the story?
Yeah, I feel like it was more of like that stair trajectory, that there would be like a bloop. Okay, great. Wow, that felt like a big shift. And then it would be like, wait, it's not, nothing's happening now. Oh, wait, boop. And then we go. And so it was kind of this stop start. And I think that we all think it's always like that linear like line going from the lower left to the top right. And it's really more of like that staircase trajectory. And a couple of the things were really taking the details and the little things really seriously. So back in the day, before having amazing websites was commonplace, I mean, this was when people were still just kind of figuring this out. I was really, really pouring a lot of resources and, you know, a substantial amount of the resources monetarily and time that I had into things like that, like our, at the time, package list, which we don't use packages anymore, but at the time that being really beautiful was really important, and just making sure that those things were just so refined and spoke to exactly what we were looking to create. And I think those things really started to set us apart, and also really start to bring in the right people. And so that was definitely part of it. And then we did have one year in 2014 that was just one of those years where we had some of the right clients come in. It was just, I think, a special year maybe in the industry. And from like the first real Asian wedding in the Maldives to get ever published on the cover of Martha Stewart Weddings, to just another amazing one. And we just really kind of pushed our clients a little bit on those ones, and they were totally willing, but it definitely was the effort on our part to go, hey, let's do an extra shoot with this, and let's get you out on a boat and do this, and just some things that were a bit out of the box at the time. And nowadays, you know, we see a lot more of, but I think that direction of really trying to editorialize it in some point was a really important focus.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And again, you know, for people that are out here that have just been in the industry for a few years, 2014 even, people were using, you know, blogs like, or Tumblr or different things like that for that was it. Like the Instagram wasn't really in existence. You couldn't build like a social media presence. And so like getting on the cover of magazines or getting, you know, published in Martha, it's just like, oh my goodness, this is what you're aiming for. It wasn't, how can I do a collaboration post with so-and-so? Like that stuff didn't exist. And so to be able to pour and see that vision of like, if I pour into my website and I pour into these extra details, that was really, that was a lot of intuition, of course, on your part. What made you think that you needed to do that? What made you realize, like, was there just an instinct, or what was standing out to you? It was like, we really need to do this if we want to push to this next level.
Yeah. And I think it's still something that I always have to kind of be sure to question and interrogate myself. Like, is this perfectionism coming up and trying to do that? Or is this, no, this is important and this matters. So maybe it doesn't need to be an A+, but at least needs to be, you know, a B, those types of things. So I kind of have to always have that renegotiation, because I know even a lot of photographers that we work with, sometimes perfectionism, then they just go, oh, I just can't post on social media because it's, you know, it has to be so, just so. And so it's this line of like, no, where are we saying the aesthetics need to be high, but also we need to be iterating and creative and thinking 3 steps ahead. And I do see that a lot in our industry, that so many people are still looking at what everybody's already done and they're going, oh, I'm going to do that. And that's their starting place. So they're always, you know, 2 steps behind, because they're not really going, well, what would I like to create? What would I like to see? And what does that look like? And that does sometimes set you apart, which most of the time is a really great thing.
So, like you pushing the limit, you having like you definitely have something like this intuition, yes, but like this grit and this drive about you that has been pushing you. You ever like where does that come from? What is how'd you get there?
Oh, well, my dad, he's a guy that, single mom in the 1950s, ended up putting himself through medical school, military for 40 years, became a flight surgeon and a doctor and in Top Gun and won Bronze Star. Needless to say, he's not like a lazy guy. So I definitely have great role models in that area. And like I said, I started working on my horse trainer, who she was like my second mother, on her ranch when I was 14, and then started working on a cattle ranch at 15. And I think the lessons that I got there were just like the true fulfillment of hard work, and not to shy away from that. And it's like really fulfilling. And that's always been something that I think is just like it's in my bones, and you're gonna have to wrestle that out of me. As I've gotten older, I'm like once in a while, oh, this is what relaxing's like. Oh, this is great, and relished in it. And then I'm like, okay, let's get back to it.
I do think there has been a like the pendulum swings of you had people like Gary V 10 years ago, just this hustle culture and like
Yes.
work 20 hours a day and go and then like the pendulum has swung a little bit where it's like self-care and mental
Yes.
health and it's important, but also there's just something when I've met you a few times, we've had a few conversations, and it's like you can just tell people that are putting in the work on top of talent. And those are the people that become the superstars in the industry. If it's like, yeah, you're really good. Like you had a natural eye for photography, but you have put in so many reps and you work so hard behind the scenes. And then people get to see the highlight reel of, oh, well, she gets to work on these multi-million-dollar weddings and she gets to go. But there's so many repetitions that go in behind the scenes. So if you're out there listening, you're like, well, I want to get there. Yes, there's a lot to do with networking. Yes, there's a lot to do with getting yourself out there, but it's just like you have to take that talent and add the hard work over, in some cases, 15, 20 years of doing this to get your overnight success. And so, anyway, I do want to ask you, so you start getting going, you start getting some of these weddings, you get published in Martha, you start like, I think I came across you 5, 6, 7 years ago now, something like that. And so you've now moved into this, like you have an educational brand, you're helping all kinds of people learn how to do their business. You've got just a lot going. You're working probably harder than you've ever worked before. Every time I talk to you, you just got off a plane, you're just about to get on a plane. And I'm assuming you love all of that. But when it comes to like your story and just like trying to like piece these things together, you start getting published, you start getting these kinds of weddings. How do you keep yourself growing and sustaining that brand over time? Like, do you like, because it feels like, oh, I've made it. Now what? Or, so how are you continually growing and sustaining your brand and your business over time?
Such a good question. And I think I, like many people, always assumed at some point I would kind of get over that hill and like go, oh, cruise control. But now we just, put our hands behind our head and just like enjoy the breeze. And the one thing, then like, boom, 2020 or boom, like these things, whatever it is, it's taught me is this industry is moving and shaking. The whole world is, not just this industry. And it's always going to keep us on our toes. So I've just realized it's best to stay on your toes and to always be looking around the corner and reimagining and reiterating and always asking, how can we do it better? Okay, great. We feel like we just updated our client experience. Let's find the holes in it. Being really honest with yourself about like, gosh, like, I know that we'd like to turn around these things faster, or we could over deliver in new ways. And I think the more I surround myself with the top people in the luxury industry, the more I realize, wow, like the bar is high, really, really high. And we all have to continuously really kind of seek out what our way is to excel and over deliver for our people.
I love that. And I think too, identifying what motivates you internally at your core. I think as I'm getting close to my 40s now, and like really through therapy and through just getting to know myself and processing life and all these things, it's like realizing what motivates me the most, and it's okay to be motivated by things, success, notoriety, money, time, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question to you is like, when you're defining what motivates you, because I would assume that like you're at the top, it's like, what next? Where do we, what things motivate you? Why do you care? Why do you keep pushing?
Yeah, well, I mean, my core motivation has always been impact, and it's always been, how does all this tie back to creating more beauty in the world, but then also really helping the world. And that's where kind of that conservation standpoint, I'm really passionate about what's happening to our planet right now. And it's not that it's dying, it's that it's being killed, and all the mass extinction happening right now. And so it sounds like such a far cry from the luxury industry, but they're all really related, because I think one aspect that I don't think people really think about, but I've been getting an education for the last 15 years on how much of the world operates, how they think, what their lives look like. And it is a piece of the world that I would have otherwise never had an invitation to get to know or be invited to the most inner workings and like innermost circle of their most important days. And I've just learned so much about humans and how we all are different, but yet still somehow at our core have the same needs and wants and desires. And so all of that, it really does tie together. And, someday that will be my life's best work, when I can put all these things together and really just have a massive impact to really help the world in that area.
I love that. I love that the word impact there, obviously, it's like having impact is a huge motivator for me. Mm-hmm. And people are like, why, you're charging this much, you've got this brand with How to Film Weddings or whatever's going, like, what keeps you motivated? I think about my two little girls and having impact in their lives. And I think about, the thousands of people that are impacted every time that we turn on this mic and this camera. And that's really what got me into wanting to educate people and help people and having that impact. I love that you care about the planet and you care about conservation. And I've seen, just as you've started to do portraits and different types of other things within your business, other little branches, and can see how that is playing towards that in the future. Just with, you never would have thought it. It's like, oh, I have had a front row ticket to all these continents and all these countries and all these relationships with all these people. And that, you never know how much impact you can have by doing that. So that's very, very cool. As far as switching the conversation a little bit, we're here talking to wedding filmmakers and photographers mainly, but wedding filmmakers. I want to talk about, like, a lot of people have really started wanting to get into some more luxury, high-paying jobs. Before even giving some feedback on that, like, I think people just think, oh, I want to make more money, or I want to, like, what are some key things that maybe people should be thinking about if they're considering getting into the luxury market? Like, what would be some, like, green flags of, like, oh, you should definitely start pursuing a career towards the luxury market, or maybe some red flags of, like, nope, you should, if your only motivation is this, then maybe you should move on to something else. Anything come to mind? I know that's kind of off the shooting from the hip, but
no, I love it. Well, I think the luxury market, one is you definitely need to realize that as prices go up, so do expectations. And so your ability to be that chameleon, to cater to their unique needs, to really see problems before they ever are clear and anticipate all of that, needs to go way up. So your emotional intelligence and your people skills probably need to be pretty solid. And if not, you need to work on that. I'm a big fan of, like, the 10,000 hour rule. And one of the things that I think is kind of unfortunate in the wave of younger photographers and filmmakers in our industry right now is a a lot of people are going straight from like, hey, I'm starting my business. Okay, great. I'm the lead shooter, and this is how I do things. And as I mentioned, I assisted photographers for years, then I associate shot, then I second shot, and then to this day, if somebody called and said, hey, would you come second shoot, I'd be like, yes, like that would be so great. I could just like take all the cool weird angle shots and do that. And so I think this desire for experience and always being able to get another perspective is so important, because especially at the luxury space, I mean, we have conversations all the time with top planners and whatnot of, hey, what do you really need? What could we do better? And they're not going to be shy about it. They're usually like, hey, you guys made this part of it difficult for us, or you asked about your food, or you did whatever, and we really didn't think that was cool or appreciate it. So I think you also need to be really willing to be that team player and accept that criticism as much as you can. Now, on the flip side of those things, if that is like where you go, yes, all that is I love when people give me feedback. I love a challenge. I like high stakes, then great. This is for you, and go get as much experience as you can. Ask everybody if you can shoot with them, for them, carry bags, you name it.
In this industry, first impressions matter more than ever. So what does your website and brand say about you? Hey guys, it's Austin here from The Creative, and as a wedding videographer myself, I know the power that branding plays in your business growth. Here at The Creative, we are a full-service creative team with over 15 years of experience specializing in creating websites and brands for wedding videographers just like you. From our full custom all-in-one packages to our do-it-yourself templates, we've got options that fit every business at any stage. You've poured your soul into your business. Now it's time to have a brand that causes couples to say yes before they even get to your contact form. To contact us, go to wearethecreative.studio.
Yes. And so if somebody in 2023 is like, yes, that's where I want to go. That's definitely the direction of what I want to head. Realistically, until they're like in the market, at least even just like entry level luxury, with your expertise and just seeing how long it's taken you, what's a realistic expectation of the amount of time that, or timing in that nature, for somebody to really think like, I could be seeing myself in this market? Because I think in an Amazon Prime world, we think, give me 6 months, give me a year.
Right.
Maybe answering that in the how long it took you to really feel like you got there. Or
oh gosh. Hopefully you guys are a lot faster than me, because I feel like I was slow years. I mean, so long. And when I look now, that is the one thing. Just I think part of it is thanks to people like you and podcasts like this. There is a lot more information out there that if you're the person that's still like, nope, I'm going to figure it out by myself under this rock over here, it's going to be a lot longer. But if you're someone taking advantage of the resources, investing in your growth, being mentored by other people, man, your ability to kind of rocket launch is never been better. I've never seen more opportunity than now, because we're just all so much more connected. There's so much more opportunity. And so I can, I've even mentored a young female filmmaker who's no longer like a newbie anymore. And Paint Frank, and she was one that just took every single little thing that we had feedback on and was like implemented it like times 10 and did that over and over and just like rocket launched up. And so I think if you're really that person that's like, not only do I want it and I want it for the right reasons, but I'm also willing to do the work and really be a good listener and learner along the way, the sky's the limit.
I love that. Earlier you mentioned emotional intelligence and people skills. That plays such a huge factor into growing. And they're wedding filmmakers, if you've tuned out, tune back in. It's not about your technical geeky skills and frame rates. It's important to know that stuff. But the people that are dominating and growing and rocket launching in the market have high EQ. Their emotional quotient is high. Their people skills are high. They understand that it's not about them getting their hot plate of dinner right on time. And the day's not just about them. And like that can see a moment is happening and not make it about them or whatever it is. Under stress, they know how to handle people and they know how to take care of planners. And so having that EQ along with the IQ is so very important. So you mentioned Peyton, and we love Peyton around here. She's great.
Yay.
She's one of our mastermind speakers. She's awesome. We're good friends with her. And you said you mentored her and different things like that. I know you do. You do lots of mentoring, lots of coaching, lots of things. How does that play into your current life, your business? I mean, you have tons of people joining your courses and your programs and different things like that. Why do that? I mean, I know that you're an impact-driven person, so maybe that's a little bit of the answer there. But like, why education? And you mentioned how important that is to, rocket launch your business, invest in education. So education, what's the importance to you of being an educator? Why do you care to help others with that? And then, any extra add-ons of why it's important to get into the luxury market if they want to.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, while maybe from the outside it might have looked like, oh, it looks just like smooth sailing in KT's career, I had so many patches where I was literally like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't have anyone to ask. I don't have anyone to, all these things. And I'm just so impressed with the industry and just so excited to see where it's going, where it really is becoming more collaborative and open, and people really are starting to see that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that, when we all flourish, we all benefit. But it really wasn't that way when I was kind of tiptoeing into the luxury market. And it was really difficult a lot of the times. And I just truly wished I had somebody that would have said, hey, let me show you behind the curtain, not, in an authentic way of I actually want to help you to get there. I don't just view you're going to come steal my jobs. And so that's something that's super important to me, of really coming from that place of abundance. And I truly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats, and kind of the same going back to, helping to even have a bigger impact in our world when every day we all make an impact. Jane Goodall is one of my mentors, and she talks about this. Well, she doesn't know she's one of my mentors, but idols. She talks about this all the time, that we all make an impact every day, and we get to choose what that impact is. It could be good, it could be bad. However, when you are struggling, when you're in poverty or you're struggling to make ends meet, it's really hard to then be focused on how do I go out and make sure that I'm leaving a positive impact in the world. And so I definitely see this with, the starving artist mentality, the idea that, as artists, we just have to be grappling each month and just struggling to get by. That is something that I feel really passionate about changing. And that when we do change that, when you have your needs met, and then you have some overflow, well, guess what? Now you can start to have impact in the things that matter to you, in your community, your family, all these things. And that is what lights me up, is that ripple effect. And so that really, to me, is the foundation of all education.
Oh, I love it whenever someone just gets it. And it's true. And people, there's haters. It's funny. I'm the guy that's, you get 1,000 compliments, but one person says something bad, and it's I have to really fight. And as we started How to Film Weddings, it was just, we want, out of our abundance, we want to help people. We want to raise the wedding film industry. We're 5-6 years behind the photo industry always. And so we now are where you all were 5-6 years ago. And it's there's education and courses coming out and workshops and styled shoots and all these different things. And whenever I was getting going, it was we're not telling anybody, nobody's talking to anybody, because God forbid they would steal our piece of the pie, this finite piece of pie. Not that there's 100,000 weddings a weekend across the world or anything, but I love what you said about abundance. And I think that's a word, that's a very obviously important word to you, but abundance, having that overflow so that you can cause impact. It's impossible to sit around and be how can I help you if your house is on fire and you don't have any, and so you've gotten to this place, you did, one of your courses, or one of your, is the abundance plan, different things like that. For me, or with what you're doing, how you're doing it, and putting everything together, how have you seen the impact you've currently been making with photographers? When did you launch the education side of your business? And how motivating is that? What are you seeing with the impact you're already having there?
Sure. Well, I'd like to say that, my intuition led or something, but I built the Abundance Plan, which is our signature program, in 2019. And we launched our first group of cohort of students in January 2020, which, if anyone remembers that time of that, we got our first group, literally just completed the program. And then the next week was lockdown. And so I'd love to say like I had divine timing with all those, but it just worked out so well in the sense that we really got an outlet at that time when we were really, like everybody else, sitting in our house going, now what? Well, we had all these other photographers who are going, oh my gosh, we need help. And this community really came together and was really built on these principles that we're talking about, that, hey, if you're here to like go, this is my secret, I'm not talking anybody and you're all my competition, like this is the wrong room for you. And so it really became just a great place of support and camaraderie, and we're in this together. And so that has just continued to grow, and we've continued to build on that. And what we've been able to see photographers do once they feel supported, once they have the toolkit, once they go, oh, that's the great process, okay, great, we really have been able to see those that back to are good at what they do. They're doing the work and they're putting in the reps and learning these little nuances, because I think what people don't realize is, the little things, back to the emotional intelligence and all of that. If you maybe just make the mistake of, asking that luxury planner that, why isn't my vegan meal here? And this is coming from the vegetarian, then all of a sudden that's how they're going to remember you. And you're probably not going to get put back on their recommendation list or things like that. So these little things we talk so much about that are just like, oh, wow, that would have been nice to know before I blew that opportunity. So it's just been incredible. And I've learned more from it than I think our students learned from it. I've grown so much just being put in a new challenge, a new room. And that's really where I thrive.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, learned so much since starting this podcast in 2018, and we launched our course in February of 2020. That was the first time we launched ours, and so like
good timing.
Yeah, the timing lucked out. It's kind of one of those things where you do the right thing for long enough, and opportunities provide, show themselves, and you get coincidences and lucky. And I know we're running out of time. I do want to ask real fast too, on the whole side of like wedding filmmakers wanting to do luxury weddings, move into that market. I think we've given them some tools on like how to take some of those steps. For you and your photographer friends, what are some of like the big no-nos that a wedding filmmaker might do, or something that's like a big like, heck yes, I want to start working with them kind of things that you've seen? What are you looking for? Because I think that wedding photography, obviously, especially in the luxury market, it's really good to have some wedding photography friends if you're a filmmaker. And so, obviously you don't want people to suck up to you or anything like that, but what are you looking for in someone that you're like, I want to refer them to that wedding. I want to refer them as part of this group. I want to introduce them to new people. What things stand out to you?
Well, I think number one is, don't just go to the Harper's Bazaar or whatever top list and just go, okay, now I'm just going to just go down this list and start checking off and talking to all those people whom I haven't really understood who they are as people or what their ideal clients are like or their business, all of those things. So first, find your people, find your circle. There somebody that's probably maybe 2 steps ahead of you or in the same season of business that is going to be the next rock star. And if you guys can come up together, wow, you're really going to build not only just amazing, professional relationships, but great relationships as well. And I think it's always from that place of value, going back to our beloved Peyton. Really how we started working together was she got pitched to video this editorial that we were doing. And I was kind of like, I don't really know her, but okay, sure. Okay, would she be willing to do some behind the scenes? I'm trying to do this behind the scenes. And she showed up like so over prepared with literally, I kid you not, her clipboard with the list of like, here's all the shots I was thinking we could get and blah, blah. And I was just so blown away by how she took a little opportunity and just over delivered tenfold. And I think it's always that of like, can you maybe ask the photographer? Everybody needs video, that's thing now. You guys are really in demand. Video content is here to stay. So, what can you do? Can you ask the planner, hey, would you like, a reel cut after this, or would you like some footage, or all those types of things? People really notice when you're not just that transactional, hey, I'm in and then I'm out as soon as I can, and sayonara.
Yeah, I love that. And I hear it, and I've always naturally been a very people person. I love working rooms. I love connecting with people. I'm extroverted. It just comes naturally to me. The more I talk to more and more filmmakers, do more and more mentor sessions, like the complete lack of self-awareness sometimes of like, wow, you don't look good right now. Like, please don't be in front of like you look like you just woke up or something, or you look like you don't care that you're here or what you're wearing. Like all these little things in this market, especially at this high of a level. And then the huge thing I think is that every one of us have a different story. Every one of us have different connections. But when you are served the opportunity, like to really make the most of it. Like,
yes.
And if you look through all the people that you admire as a photographer, that it's like they have found these little, you think about actors that you love and you go look at their biographies or like some of their stories of all the little things they did, the extra show, the extra comedy show they did, the extra hours they put on the stage, the extra whatever, and then made the most of whatever that opportunity was. And they had prepared themselves with those 10,000 hours so they were ready for when that moment was hitting. Those are the people that, skyrocket. It's like Peyton knew how to film. She knew all these, she had been doing years of work and she had gotten herself ready. And when she showed up, I bet she was not dressed in something that was like off-putting. It was like, oh, you have fashion. Like, this is fashionable. Like, we're doing an editorial. This is like, it was just well thought. And then you leave that event feeling like, I like that, Peyton. That was good. And then there's another opportunity, and then before you know it, maybe you're shooting 6, 7, 8 weddings with her this year because you've just made a relationship and you know that they would fit. And the piece of advice about like up and coming with other people, like I can't explain that. I filmed a wedding last year. For me, it was a pretty large wedding, 7-figure budget for the wedding. And the planner, I did the first wedding with her 8 years ago. It was her first wedding. And now she's doing weddings that are in the 7-figure mark. And she hired me, for a lot to come film for 3 or 4 days. And people are like, well, man, you're lucky. You got to work with that planner. And it's like, well, yeah, but I've also been there growing up with her for 8 years or whatever. And now that serves me more opportunities because people see, whoa, John does these kinds of weddings and I want him to come to my wedding. And so always take advantage of those opportunities. And anyway, I've rambled a little bit. Do you want to add anything before I move on? I don't want to. Sometimes I do that, and I'm self-aware.
No, I love it. I love it. You're so great. I think the last little bit is that people really, me included, they really like to work with people that they like and that make them feel at ease and make their job easier. So the videographers, filmmakers that I recommend, they really are people that I go like, oh, I'm just going to like breathe a sigh of relief when I hear that they're on the job. And so how do you do that for people in your own unique way? And those natural connections will form from that place if you can figure that out and really be, and it can't be, this is, the last bit, it can't be something that you're faking because people will see through that. It really needs to be genuine in the sense that you really do want to help them or, you connect on these certain things or just, it's easy to be around each other.
Yeah, that's huge. I love it. Before we sign off today, I know there was a couple of things that you're up to. You've got a couple of things going on, maybe even I think a freebie you want to send over to our audience. Tell me first, there's something going on today as this episode drops is the 10th of July. I think you have something going on tomorrow. Why don't you tell me about that and the wedding filmmakers that are tuning in?
Yeah, sure. So we're doing a portfolio masterclass tomorrow, which absolutely applies to filmmakers and photographers in the sense that curation. It is one of the most important things about what you actually choose to put out into the world and really kind of represent your business. And so it's a free masterclass all about that. And we'll be sharing more about my craft program, which is really all about how you can be doing your prep work Obviously, when you show up and shoot, that's an important piece, but it's all the things before that too that really allow you to show up and be truly successful. And so we've got a craft program called the Mary Method there as well that we share all our processes about that.
Awesome. And then before we hit record, you were talking also about some mistakes people make.
Yes.
There's another freebie there. What is that? And
yes.
all that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we see a lot is a lot of people saying, okay, great, I want to get out of the middle market. I want to go to luxury. And there's some common trends or pitfalls, if that we see people make over and over and over. And it's just a simple PDF just calling them out for you. So hopefully you can learn through insight and not through pain. And so it's the 7 mistakes that photographers, it applies to you too, filmmakers, make from going from mainstream to luxury. And we'll get the link in here so that you guys can grab those insights so you're not making those mistakes and learning the hard way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the last hour. I know that you're not, your schedule's not easy to, you got a lot going on. And so I appreciate it. If people just want to find you, follow along, connect with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say the grams, Instagram at @KTMary, at @KTMary Education. We're always going to have the latest and greatest there. I try to share as much as I can in terms of behind the scenes and also on the education side, as many insights as we can. And so you can always learn more. And I do send a great newsletter every week. So you can also sign up for our newsletter list and you'll get that in your inbox.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. You're an inspiration. I'm glad to call you a friend. And if you ever need anything from us over here in the How to Film Weddings world, please let us know. Thank you so much, KT, for being on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. Keep raising that tide for your whole industry as well. And I'm loving that filmmakers and photographers are coming together more and more year after year. So let's keep that trend going.
All right, let's do it. Again, thank you so much, KT, for being on the show today. I know how busy you are. I know that it takes time to be on these things, but you really do see the impact that KT wants to have for being on the show. If you're still here listening, thanks so much for taking the time to invest into you. And as we talked about on the podcast this week, a rising tide does raise all boats. And you're here investing into your education. You're investing into you. Be sure to hit the links below the video or the show notes to see some of those freebies we talked about. And I want to mention our website, howtofilmweddings.com. We just redid the whole thing. It's got all kinds of resources for you. We've made it really easy for you to see different free YouTube videos, free tutorials. We've got a digital shop with all kinds of products and different things like that. But it's a hub and a resource for you to really take your wedding videography business to the next level. So head over to howtofilmweddings.com today. Check it out. And until next time, we will see you.
Attention wedding filmmakers. The best resource for licensing music for your wedding films is MusicBed. I have been exclusively using MusicBed for about 8 years and our films are better because of it. I hear a lot from our couples that reach out to us that our wedding films feel different, that the music isn't cheesy. MusicBed has a roster of incredibly talented musicians, bands, and composers who pour their hearts into their work, and you can hear the difference. Find the perfect song with MusicBed's intuitive search features like genre, mood, beats per minute, and my favorite, key. Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed to learn more and take your films to the next level. Use promo code HTFW23 at checkout to receive 1 month free with the purchase of an annual subscription. That's howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed.